air. Here we go. Okay, we should hopefully have a couple of people join us now. Gonna just jump the slides back. Oh no, there we go. Okay. Jump the slides back.
There.
Here we go.
All
Educators
right.
in VR number 5, and we are off. Okay. The sky is no longer the limit.
Yay!
Thank you everybody for coming. Fantastic. Let's have some emojis. Let's have some emojis. Fantastic. Lovely. There we go. Fantastic. Thank you to our speakers for coming. Thank you to guests for coming. I'm sure we're going to have more. We have 79 people interested. It's going to be a full room. Just full disclosure so everybody knows, there are 2 bots up above you who are filming the event. So if that's not for you, please leave now, but I hope you stay. We'll be posting the film on, the recordings on YouTube as well. We have a YouTube channel. We got quite a few announcements to get through afterwards. We're going to give it maybe, a few more minutes to let people join. Today the topic is, let's see, move on. It's diversity and inclusion in VR and education. It's an important topic because of the potential, but also of the risk, and hopefully we'll be covering some of that today. Maybe, all right, turn on air, yeah? Rel, we're on air.
Excellent.
Okay, I just got a message from Rel. Just for those of you, maybe you're new to this event, this is Educators in VR. We've been going since November. This is our 5th event, and the aim is to create a community of people who are using virtual reality or interested in virtual reality for education, bring people together, make connections, share resources, explore this exciting new medium, because everybody's still kind of trying to figure it out. We've been given this amazing tool, but in terms of really delivering teaching and training in a cohesive, coherent way that makes sense and that can reliably deliver value, I think there's a lot of learning still we all need to do. We have in our community, we have a Discord channel. We have about 150 members, and we have some amazing members there, researchers, journalists. I know also Nina here is, you did work for VR Focus, I think, at some point. We have Alan, who's a world bender, that we'll be hearing more about you all in a moment. Just waiting for a couple of people more to join if we can. All right, let's hear from everybody who uses VR in education. Hands up if you use VR in education, or emojis.
Hearts.
Yeah,
Hearts.
hands up, emojis. Hearts, yes, absolutely.
Hearts, not hands. Hearts.
Cool.
You're going to.
All right,
that's
lovely.
Traditional.
Everybody.
That's traditional.
Yeah,
Look at
I should
you.
leave
We
it
give
at the door.
hearts.
Lovely. All right.
How many want
any
to?
smileys?
I want to know who wants to.
Yeah, how many want to? Hearts for how many who would like to use VR in education. I know I do, and I would like to. What about some smileys? Any startups or businesses using VR in education space? I think, Brennan, you're one of those people. We'll be hearing about your startup or business. Maybe it's not a startup anymore. And there's some smileys over there. Excellent, startups, fantastic. Are there any researchers in the house? Give us some hearts of researchers. Lovely, over there, researchers. Fantastic. There is a lot of important work to be done researching VR and the efficacy of teaching, because it's easy to get carried away with the hype and the excitement around it, but really we owe it to ourselves and the students to make sure that what we're doing is based on sound science as well. Right, well, I think we're 5 minutes in. I think we're gonna start, and people will join when they're ready. Should we do that?
Yeah,
well,
let's get going.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Just a quick rundown of what to expect today. We are going. Oh, has Brennan dropped out? Is he coming back?
I may be re-entering, but I just want to remind people that we will be taking questions. So what you do to ask a question is hit the Ask a Question button, and when we have a chance to answer some questions, we will. So be patient. We will answer either through or during it or at the very end, so that we can get through our amazing panel so they can share their awesome talents and stuff with you.
Good point.
Make sure you use that Ask a Question button.
Yeah, thank you. So today we're going to just briefly, I'm going to briefly introduce our speakers. Then they are going to share a little bit of their work and their projects with us. And then we're going to move on to some questions regarding diversity and inclusion in VR and education. Followed by that, I will be taking some questions, or hopefully you'll have the chance to ask questions then, and the speakers will answer yourselves. That will be followed with some community news. And finally, we'll have some mingle and meet and network and just hang out. So without any further ado, here we go. I'm going to bring the slides up we have on the left here, Alan Chao. Alan Chao is a user experience designer working in tech, and he is the host of User Experience Meetup in Altspace VR. Lovely. Thank you, Alan. Let's give him some claps and hearts and smiles. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to hearing what about your work. Next to him, we have Nina Salomons, who is a film producer. Is it JellyBee Productions? Is that your film company?
JellyBeeFilms is just,
JellyBeeFilms, okay. You have recently worked for VR Focus, but not anymore, and you have been involved in the VR Diversity Initiative, or still are?
I was. So I led it last year. So we trained 86 different people from underrepresented groups to make VR.
Okay, so you have a good background of that. Maybe you'll share a little bit about that in a moment. Here we also have, all the way from Australia, Brennan Hatton, who is co-founder of Equal Reality. I read up on it today and it sounds amazing. Social entrepreneur, VR developer, and VR AR expert. I'm really excited to have you here as well. Let's get some smiles and hearts for Brennan. Okay. Are you with us, Brennan? Show us you're with us. I think you might be struggling. Yeah, excellent, cool. Okay. Do you want to turn just a little bit towards the front of the stage? There you go.
Is that the...
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. And we were expecting Dr. Peter Bloom, who, if he does message me to join, I will briefly deal with that and we'll try and get him to join us. I haven't had his Altspace username to add him as a presenter, so he might come knocking at my door. But if he does come, this is Dr. Peter Bloom, project lead for Virtual Inclusion, which is a research study he did with the Open University. And he is also co-founder of REEF. I will tell you what the acronym means later on. It was relevant to what we're doing here. So with that, please, Alan, would you briefly describe some of the work you do and how you are involved with diversity inclusion in VR? Over to you.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that my background is kind of a bunch of various things that are maybe not exactly related to VR and education, but kind of tangentially related. So like you mentioned, I'm a user experience designer. So my day-to-day in my day-to-day, I deal with a lot of things related to product design and user experience, and I kind of take the psychological aspect of design and create. Really, I'm just kind of design behavior. That's kind of how I see it. So yeah. So
I'll be interested to ask you about that and how it relates to designing spaces as well. We have that's some of what you do, and maybe your experiences of how designing spaces affects people who enter that space.
Absolutely.
Because of their social behavior. That'll be very interesting. Thank you very much, Alan. Nina, can you share a little bit with us your work and your background, your projects?
Sure. So I used to lead the VR Diversity Initiative. This is something under VR Focus, a not-for-profit. The idea was to train only people from underrepresented groups because we felt most of the industry were sort of like white men in suits. So we wanted to make a change. And we ran workshops, approximately one every 2 months for a day, where we taught people how to make 360 films or do Unity, or we combined 3D printing with 3D scanning and then designing backpacks for people with scoliosis, for example.
Oh, wow. Great.
Or learning mixed reality and all types of other cool stuff. And I was one of the founders of the Women in VR meetups in London probably 3 years ago now, so that's a while.
Right.
So yeah, I'm all about equality and diversity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Excellent. We'll be hearing a little bit more about that maybe in a moment. All right, over to you, Brennan. Just going to skip the slide here. Brennan, you are co-founder of Equal Reality. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what you do?
Yeah, I can. Hey, everybody. So I'm Brennan, co-founder of Equal Reality.
Brennan, you need to have your megaphone turned on. Sorry.
Yeah, on your bottom right there. Can you click the megaphone on?
Audience questions on air?
On air,
no,
and the megaphone should be right next to it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have that. I've got audience questions and then ask questions and then spaces.
Oh, no.
Okay, I will take care of that. Give me a second.
Okay.
It's going to make it difficult to hear.
Okay, Brennan, can you speak and can everybody give me some emojis if you can hear him? Brennan, make some noise.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I am speaking on the stage without a megaphone, trying to use my virtual loud voice. Is that effective? Can anyone hear me at all?
That's about half of them are giving emojis.
I don't think I see the emojis.
Yeah, half of them.
That's good.
Yeah, there's a few more there.
Emojis.
Okay, I can see emojis. Oh, you've got emojis turned off? Okay.
Okay. Brennan, if you could re-enter really quickly, and then it should be great. You should
if you
have
jump out and jump back in, Brennan. Yep.
Can do.
Okay, so while Brennan is jumping out and jumping in, then we will...
How about Alan talking about his space for a second?
Yeah, please do. I'll bring that space up, actually, Alan. There we go. I just jumped past it. Yeah, so Alan, this is a space you designed. Can you tell us who it's for and why you or how you designed it and why you designed it that way, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me. Sorry, I was need to clear my throat, but luckily I can mute myself in VR.
Brennan will come right back to you in a moment.
Yeah, so the space was actually created for, it was actually for Jeremy over here. Jeremy approached me after I created my first world, the Brooklyn Rooftop in Altspace. It's created with Unity. And, you know, I kind of, it was really just a hobby, world building for me. But like, you know, like how you kind of alluded to earlier, the thing for me is that I see everything with through the lens of UX. So for better or for worse, I start to scrutinize everything in a way where I think about usability and like you know, the various aspects of user experience, just on a high level. You know, I'm not like writing a paper or anything, but this space was created for the meditation and yoga events. Really, it's like I had some pretty high level guidelines. Mostly Jeremy and I spent a lot of time talking about references and the feeling of the space, and I think that's probably the most important factor in designing the space. So you know, we talked about, you know, India and Nepal, and these are places that both of us have been to, and I did a lot to try to evoke some of the experiences I had in those places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I have entered that space, and the audio sound, the ambient audio in it is wonderful. I found it made for a really conducive and open atmosphere with the other members there. The way you designed the space and the sound in it, for me, made me feel relaxed and open up to the people. And as a design consideration for diversity and inclusion, because that's the topic we're on, I thought that for an experienced designer or a user experience designer, there could be considerations like, if I build this space in this way, it'll invite this kind of behavior. If I build it in a different way, it'll invite different kind of behavior. And in a social setting, is that something you've experienced or that you considered?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a major consideration is actually where you spawn in, which is kind of in this middle section. Early on, we had this concept of having various levels, and loosely tied to the concept of like you know I guess different going through different states, or maybe achieving enlightenment or something. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
enlightenment. Yeah,
when you spawn into into the space, which is the image on the right over there, immediately you see this staircase that goes upward, and that was purposely, that was kind of something that we wanted to instill people, like this sense of curiosity.
Okay.
So that's kind of your introduction to the space, and there's nothing that says like walk this way, but to go up the stairs.
Yeah.
Once you actually get to the top of the platform, then you're kind of welcomed by these platforms, and I think there's the geometric factor kind of welcomes you to just find a space.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience. Oh, I was just going to come back to Brennan, and he's jumped out again. Okay. Before we move on, hopefully Brennan will be back in a minute. But Alan, you also were a leader of an informal diversity inclusion group as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Would you share a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I work in tech. Where I started this group was actually, I worked at a company called Shapeways, which does 3D printing. And I bring that up only because, so I worked for Shapeways. I was a UX designer there as well. But, tech has this reputation for being, maybe somewhat limited when it comes to diversity at times. And, I think I had a pretty diverse team, but I think, I look at diversity as, there are two ways to look at it. There's inherent diversity, and there's acquired diversity. So inherent diversity.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Inherent diversity is like the actual group, like how diverse the group actually is. But that's only one factor. I would say that the other aspect would be, being able to actually talk about diversity and actually share perspectives. And I felt that's the challenge,
Right. So you might be a diverse group by your very nature, but if you don't talk about it, you don't have the acquired diversity. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah.
If there's no conversation about it, then it's almost as if it doesn't exist?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I found myself, even though there was a diverse group, I still felt like I need to talk about things, or else you still hear the same problem, slightly problematic things that you might hear if you're not white, or a straight white male, which is the stereotype.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very interesting. Actually, on that point, I'm a straight white male. So for me I'm very curious to learn about this. I'm exactly one of those majority or overrepresented maybe groups. Okay, thank you, Alan. I'm going to come back to Brennan because you jumped in once or twice there. Brennan, can you share a little bit with us about your work at Equal Reality, please?
So
you with us?
I'm afraid
Audio
I don't
okay?
have the microphone, so I'm going to have to try and speak up.
Okay.
At Equal Reality, we create diversity and inclusion training in virtual reality. So we put people in the perspective of minorities to experience discrimination. So we actually use virtual reality as a medium to improve cultural diversity and inclusion at organizations like governments, corporates, banks, law firms, universities, educational institutes. We're training thousands of people all over the world to date.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about this picture behind us here?
Yes. So this is a shot from one of our experiences where we've got one of our team members, one of our co-founders, Rick. He's actually in the experience, going through the experience we developed with the Royal Australian Navy here in Australia.
Yeah.
And that's an experience we developed around cultural bias. And so he's looking into the mirror and seeing himself as an Aboriginal man. And that's actually a photogrammetry scan of a real person And the mirror is interactive. So this is all done in real-time virtual reality, like sort of what we're in now, but aimed to be more hyper-realistic.
Okay. Yeah, it does look quite realistic there. Just for a moment, Brennan, could you just double check down to your right that there still isn't a megaphone? We're trying to fix it in the background. It's still not coming up for you. What equipment are you using, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm on a Vive.
You're on a Vive and you cannot see the megaphone button. That's a shame. Okay, we'll make the best of.
Audience.
Okay, on air and audience. Okay, we'll have to keep going with what we've got. So if we were to experience your work, what kind of setting or what kind of outcomes would you hope for? That the people you work with, what are you trying to affect for them?
Most organizations who work with are well aware of problems they have, and
they're not aware of the problems they have. Okay.
They are well aware. Sorry, they're
they
aware.
are. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And we're just helping them improve their attempts at trying to hit their targets that they're already aware of. And so with the Royal Australian Navy, we were working on things like sexual harassment, gender bias, cultural bias. For other organizations, it's just about like more general workplace behavior, about power and exclusion, bullying.
Okay.
And it's sort of how we implement our training depends on
I'm
what the
struggling
organization
with your audio a little bit. Maybe it's just me. This is a shame. This is a shame.
I'll see if I...
this is a shame. Can anyone else
So we can hear him, but if Brennan, if you could move closer to the audience, that would really help. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. There you go. Let's try that.
And we're just having the problem that you have the on-air button, but you don't have a megaphone button. That's not normal. Right. So we're having something odd going on. But thanks everyone for their patience. Yay. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you. This is early days in VR. We do the best we can. We get quite good results. So Brennan, you were saying that you work with the Royal Navy, I think, was it?
Yeah, the Royal Australian Navy.
Right.
And so I was talking sort of...
Yeah, go on.
And about how sort of the results that we expect to get generally depend on what the organization is trying to achieve. And so we sort of work with the organizations usually aware of the problems that they face. And they are actively wanting to improve in certain areas, and we help them improve in certain areas. So, for instance, with the Royal Australian Navy, we were working on sexual harassment, we were working on gender bias, and we were working on culture bias. But we recently have done one for one of Australia's largest banks around sexuality, where you get to actually experience all of our experience, well, most of our experience is based on actual real-life experiences. Things that happen to people in the employees in the organization. And so we sort of take people through these experiences, and it's a lot of the outcomes is particularly about the virtual reality end of it, is about that experience of what it's like to feel discrimination, what it's like to feel different types of perspectives of these people that are experiencing this in the workplace.
You're trying to give people the direct experience of being on the receiving end of either ignorance or willful exclusion and that kind of, diminishing behavior. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And you find VR as a powerful tool for this?
Yes. Virtual reality is a really powerful tool for being able to give people experiences. I think that's one of the greatest strengths of virtual reality, particularly a strength above what we've already got available, is we're able to actually give someone an experience. And that's been really...
Yeah, Brennan, could you be more specific? What do you mean by giving people? Give us an example.
One of our recent experiences with one of Australia's largest banks, it was about an experience that one of their employees went through when they went to sign up for a gym membership. And so their employee went to sign up for a gym membership, and they were denied a partner membership deal based on their sexuality. And so we actually recreated that experience in virtual reality, so anyone can go through the experience of going to sign up for the gym and receiving the bias firsthand. So you get to actually experience the discrimination by going and signing up for the gym and being denied the membership based on your sexuality.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Wow, thank you.
That sounds amazing. What's the response been to that, Brennan, please, of people going through that experience?
The response has been overwhelmingly positive. It's been really exciting. We've actually got, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Net Promoter Scores. We got a Net Promoter Score of 91, which basically is sort of like it's like 30 is probably industry standard, 60 is world class, and 91 is like absolutely outstanding. But 99% of people, over 99% of people that went through that experience actually empathized with the experience and with the characters in that experience. And 96% of people came out of it and felt that they were ready to take action in the workplace if they ran into this sort of behavior.
That's stunning.
Wow, that is stunning. Can we read up more if people were interested in your work? How would we find out more?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you go to our website, equalreality.com, we've got our case studies actually detail about like those numbers that I just said. And you can also sort of read more about like other sorts of training we've been doing, and we're just launching a subscription library of all our existing training that we've built, where people can start subscribing to the different applications. So we've built tens of applications, and we're going to start releasing those.
That's exciting.
To the general public.
Okay, you're on our Discord server as well, so please keep us updated when that's released. And that's fantastic news. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to come back to Nina's work a little bit. Nina, can you tell us a little bit about why you think VR is appropriate and useful for this work, please?
Sorry, can you just specify that question a little more?
What can VR do for diversity inclusion that we can't already do in the real world?
Well, I mean, I think we all know that VR is great, the supposed empathy machine and putting somebody in somebody else's shoes. There are a lot of experiences that already do this. So, I mean, if that's important. But what I think is important for individuals who are diverse, what I've seen from the film background and from the gaming background and TV background is that there aren't enough individuals who are from a diverse background. I was, for example, selected as part of these emerging filmmakers in the UK, and we were specifically selected because we were underrepresented groups, whether it was through our sexuality or ethnicity or anything else. And we really struggle to get in, and I think we're now slowly making a difference in the film world. But I think in VR, because it's the next step or the next medium for storytelling, I think it's really important not to miss out the people who aren't represented in film or in gaming. So we don't repeat history in a new storytelling medium. So that's why I think diversity is incredibly important.
So are you saying now there's an opportunity maybe that we missed in the past with this new medium? We will have an opportunity to get it right from the beginning?
Of course.
Yeah. And the VRDI, so the Virtual Reality Diversity Initiative, that's still working, isn't it?
So, yes, I'm not running it anymore, but I've heard that there will be some funding. So who here is in the UK? Nobody's in the UK here?
I'm in the UK. Sorry. Yeah?
There's some hearts. Let's give some hearts.
Yeah. Yay.
Yay. Okay, well, if you are in the UK, what we did is we ran the workshops, and people had to go through a pretty long Google form to basically explain where they were, what type of experience they had, why they wanted to go into virtual reality, what type of VR experiences they've experienced. And then based on how much they really wanted to join the industry, we selected them. So we wanted a huge variety. So we had LGBTQ, women, ethnic minority, disabilities, lower income, and all of those individuals had to sort of click that certain box and explain why they thought they were diverse. And then we brought them to the workshop. And what was surprising was that there was a lot of hatred toward the initiative. There were a lot of people who were angry it even existed. Because they were saying that it was just, it sort of left out a lot of people who wanted to have that opportunity. We made sure that it was free for people to come along. And we had a lot of people from across the UK come all the way to London to attend. And we've been quite successful. A few people have quit their jobs to start up their own VR company. Some people were teachers and they started to teach VR. So we know that it's had a huge impact, and we know that a lot of the younger individuals got, some credits working on 360 films, got Google grants, and started making their own VR content. So I think what we wanted to do was get them hired, and we managed to do that. So if you want to find out more, I think it is actually coming to the US.
Right.
So if you want to find out more,
it's coming to the US. That's great news.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
That's what the whole idea is, that we wanted to make it international. So hopefully, with the right support and with the right sponsors, whoever's continuing the VRDI will continue. So if you go to VRDI.uk or at VRDI_UK on Twitter, whatever updates will come. And obviously, if you're based somewhere else, we've had a lot of requests from people in Hungary and Singapore, all over the world, who really want this initiative to come there. So it's got a lot of traction.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's show some emojis for that work as well. That's amazing work. Thank you. Okay. I have another question. I'm just checking my notes here, actually, in the real world. So I think we can all agree that there's an opportunity here, but I'm interested also in your opinions. What's the risk if people like you, if we don't do work on this topic and VR kind of just stumbles along, carrying with it all the stuff we have in the real world? What's the risk for VR if we don't work on this? Maybe Brennan, would you start with that, please?
Certainly. I think it's a really interesting question. Am I heard?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah? Awesome. I think it's a really interesting question, and not just the impact of what would happen to virtual reality if this isn't considered and really taken action upon right now, but what's going to happen throughout the world in every industry. Because I think virtual reality, at current rates, so McKinsey has come out and said that it's going to take over 100 years to reach equality for gender alone. And that's with traditional methods and at the rate things are currently going. And so I think virtual reality really presents an opportunity to try and bring that down and actually make meaningful progress in less than 10 years. And so that's what we're trying to do at Equal Reality, is we want to bring about equality much sooner than what the traditional methods are bringing. And I think virtual reality, like if we aren't going to maximize on using technologies like virtual reality that have the potential to actually bring about that change, then we risk not really making any meaningful progress for the next 100 years for equality throughout all industries.
Good point. Yeah, well said. Well said. Thank you. Alan, do you have any thoughts on that? What happens if we don't design and we don't work on diversity inclusion with VR?
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of look at it from maybe like a tech and product perspective, since that's kind of what I'm familiar with. But, I think, and this is actually something that includes, my perception of diversity and inclusion is quite broad. I would say, it includes, at least I would say that includes, varying abilities, very different age groups. There are a lot of different factors, not just things like race and gender. So I would say, yeah, there's like you have a huge potential to miss out on understanding the needs of certain demographics. Something that I've experienced just with alt space is that there's a huge range in age. You have teenagers, pretty young teenagers, to people in their 60s, and I've encountered many people who are maybe in their 50s and 60s who really find that VR is a great platform for them to use. And I think it's early right now, and we're seeing these things. And if you ignore it, then I think you're potentially missing a huge market.
Right. Yeah, good point. Nina, how about you? What do you think? What would happen, or what's the risk if we don't do this work? If you don't do your work with minorities and don't bring them in?
Well, I think there's 3 points. The first one is that we, like I said, we would repeat history with regards to leaving out a huge, huge members that have stories to tell. Number 2, I think, is safety. I think that in general, in order to create a safe environment, we need to have everybody there who's part of the conversation. And number 3, I think, is a lot has to do with mental health and disabilities. I actually believe that individuals who see the world differently have the key to making the next solution for interfaces and for design. And so I really think that they need to be part of the conversation because they look at the world differently. And we can't take an old solution to new technology. We need to really look outwards and find new solutions and think outside the box, and not just take something that comes from film or gaming or tech and put it in. We need something new and refreshing.
Well said. Well said. I fully agree. I think the way I interpret what you're saying is that the more voices we bring in, the more we all benefit, the richer this place gets. Is that fair to say?
Think I think we speed up the process of equality, as Brennan was saying. I think by doing it virtually, we could make it go a lot faster, and it would just work a lot faster than instead of speaking face to face. If we can meet virtually from across the world, like one of the reasons why I joined filmmaking was I wanted to change the world. With VR, when I learned about VR, I grew up in Africa. I grew up in war zones, and I meet people in Europe, and I tell them, I've seen people live in trash. I've seen people die on the streets, but it doesn't really mean anything to them because it's 2D. The power of VR is so incredible because I can give them a story and they can personally feel attached to characters like you have in video games. You're personally immersed, you're making a story, you're making a decision. And I think that personal attachment to people is what's really missing sometimes in a film, because at the end of the day, the character who leads isn't you. But in VR, you can be the one that makes those personal connections with other people around the world, and that's really important.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Let's support for that. I had a thought while you were speaking, and I think it slipped my mind. But actually, what I was going to say is, if we look around just here, I mean, we have people from all over the world. There's no passports involved. There's no borders. There's only a time zone to deal with. Maybe we'll have time zone exclusion problems, but we're stood here fairly diverse. We could always do better on the diversity front, the more people we get in, but certainly we're quite international, and we are sharing same values, where we have a common cause to use VR for good and for education. This is an example of some of the work that can be done by individuals and volunteers. I like the idea of 2 or 3 of you have echoed this, that not only can we benefit by getting VR right inside, diversity and inclusion right inside VR, but the effect can be that that has a knock-on, like a ripple effect to the real life. Is that what I'm hearing? Do you agree with that?
Mirrored room.
Okay. I'm just going to shout out to, we have another room spawning, so thank you for joining us in the other room. You won't see the crowd that we have in the first room, but thank you for joining. Well done. Yeah, just on that comment, is there an agreement that not only is the work important inside VR, I suppose maybe there's not really that much of a division. The people who are in VR are real people, and if they have an experience in VR for diversity inclusion and that kind of empathetic experience, that will naturally reflect in the real world. Do you agree with that, Alan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's, at least platforms, social platforms like AltSpace, they are very much analogs to real life, I would say. You find the same kind of social dynamics happening as you would find in your real life, except the people that you can actually access and interact with is pretty much limitless. Although I should correct myself, it's limited to people who have access to the technology. But that's still much broader than people I might actually see in real life.
That's a very good point. Access to the technology is a really, really important point. And I think some of the work we're trying to do with educators in VR is build relationships with industry partners to help them. I mean, to be fair, I think HTC Vive, Microsoft, Oculus, they have programs like this, but we need it faster and specifically reaching out to communities who otherwise are cut off. I think VR owes it to them to bring them on board with this technology. Okay. Let me move on to another question then. I wanted to ask you, I mean, you guys are all involved in one way or another directly working with diversity, but for a person like myself, I'm a straight white male. Other than doing this, can you recommend what else I could be doing in VR? I mean, outside of VR, I teach English as a foreign language, and most of my students are refugees or migrant workers or international students from abroad. So I'm involved to a degree with this, but inside VR, is there anything obvious, anything else that we can be doing as individuals here to get involved in this cause? Nina, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, when I started the VRDI, I was told by a white straight man, like, I want to help. And I thought, well, you're part of the problem. Like, I don't want your help. And then he said, well, that's a big problem. You actually do want our help because we're the stepping stone into getting more access, more money, and more support. If anything, you guys are the voice into getting us more access into more things. So we really do need your help. We do need your support, and we need you as allies. If the best way to support people like us is, I think, training us or individuals from underrepresented groups in VR, and two, hiring them. I think that's really important. Like, believing in them. They do make mistakes. They're just like anybody else, but give them an opportunity and a chance, and they will be just like anybody else. And I think just giving them that opportunity is something that a lot of them might not have had before. And I think that would be a great help and support if you, as a person of privilege, can help those who don't have it.
Well said. Thank you very much, Nina, for that. Brennan, you just jumped out. Let me just catch you up on what we said. My question was, so you guys are working directly on diversity and inclusion in VR. People like us who are maybe experiencing VR rather than working in that field, what can we do? Nina made the point that straight white males can be part of the solution as well as a part of the problem, and was saying that not only should we train people or minority and underrepresented people to use this and access this technology, but also we should hire them. So that's like putting your money where your mouth is. Do you have any other thoughts on what we can do? Your average Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just like in the virtual reality industry, like every industry, there's action that we can all take towards improving diversity and inclusion, no matter who we are. And ultimately, diversity and inclusion it should happen at the very, very beginning. It's sort of be thought about with the communities we're building, how accessible we're making these communities. I really think that diversity in particular is a very hard thing to achieve. And it's not something that is achieved directly. It's a hard thing to go directly after diversity and say, I'm going to take action to directly improve, but it sort of is improved through improving inclusion in general, improving inclusion for everyone. Yeah. And something that building communities done like right on the very early on, if you sort of think of like the pipeline of building a team, you've sort of got it like down the bottom here, you've got like sort of the people on your team and how included you make them feel. You've got your hiring process where you sort of your interviews, and you can sort of remove biases from there. But where you can actually actively take action on improving diversity and inclusion is really up here before the hiring. It's the things about the people you interact with. It's the way that you make your opportunities interesting to people of different backgrounds. It's the way that you really sort of open up the way you build your community to sort of be inclusive of people of all backgrounds. And I think inclusion is the key there.
Okay. Well said. Thank you. I don't know about anybody else. I've lost your audio again. Thank you for that. You're saying about starting with how you build your team, I think, as well. Alan, just while Brennan's audio is recovering, Alan, do you have anything to add to that? Yeah, you're back again.
Awesome.
I can hear you fine, Brennan, actually.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, Alan?
So I mean, I see, I would say that I see diversity, inclusion in real life pretty much as the same as in VR. And I'll also just say I have less experience with, I guess certain initiatives in VR. I'm more familiar with just like the social aspect. But my approach is, when you're talking about something as monumental as diversity and inclusion, you kind of ask yourself like, what difference can I actually make? And I think the answer to that for me is, when something seems too big, the best approach is just to start small, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So start with your immediate, the people that you interact with every day. In my case, it was, it was people at my workplace. And, that's when I decided to start a little diversity and inclusion group. I felt like, it's not necessarily something that HR does. It's something that anyone can do. So for me, I just kind of used some of my experience as a user experience designer to actually create these, my own version of a D&I workshop, where the main difference is that I looked at the participants as, I guess, users, and I was kind of guiding them through an experience. So, all of the main purpose was to create the right context for talking about like for everyone to actually feel comfortable talking about their own experiences. And for me, it was not, it was not really focused on, just people who are quote unquote diverse or not. It was really just looking at everyone as people, and again, just providing the context for people to actually talk about these things. I think that's the
Thank you very much.
The main focus. Yep.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, can I just quickly add to that?
Please. Yes.
I think it's again the reiterating of safety. With the Women in VR group, we had a lot of women come forward who wanted to come because they felt so unsafe, they felt so objectified, and for the first time when we all sort of came together, they felt safe to share what they were doing and make friends. And I think that's really important to feel safe, especially if it translates into a digital world. I think that's important.
That's very interesting. Do you think that their experience, do you think that VR contributed to that safe space in a way, in a meaningful way, that it wouldn't happen outside?
Well, I think the reason why the Women in VR group on Facebook is so big, and the reason why women cluster in a space, is simply because they do need it. And the idea that there is a Women in VR group showcases that there's a necessity for it, meaning that it feels unsafe to be outside of it. So
Good point.
I think that needs to be mentioned.
Thank you for that. Well, let's give a big round of applause for the 3 speakers and covering the topic today. Thank you, first of all, for coming on this show. Thank you for the work you're doing, because I think the work stands to benefit everybody. So hats off and big respect to user experience designers, startups, and initiatives like VRDI and JellyBeeFilms. Thank you so much for everything you do for all of us. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. I'd love to.
Did you still want me to mention the prison project, or?
Oh, yes, please do briefly mention that. Maybe as a last thing before we move on. Yes, please, Nina.
Oh, right. Well, I'm working on bringing virtual reality to prisoners, and I think there's a lot of ethical questions that comes with this because it's giving freedom to people in prisons, but they are the people who are left behind by society, and they also deserve to have a choice. So I'm sort of looking at what to put them in. So if you know anybody who has any mindfulness VR applications that work without internet and could go on a go, please let me know and send them to me. I would love to test them out, send them to the inmates and see how they react. That would be lovely.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sorry I forgot that. Excellent. I'm going to be sharing in just a moment. Well, actually, let me skip to the right slide now. We have a few minutes now. We're running a little bit over, but a few minutes. If you have any questions, the following. Please use the Ask a Question icon on your bottom right. And if you are going to ask a question, just make sure it's a pertinent question, quite focused, because we're limited on time. The more focused your question, the better answers you'll get. So I'm going to have a look who's got questions. We've got a few here. Let me see. I'm going to start with Roft Horax. Is Roft Horax here with a question?
This is the most.
Hi there, Roft Horax. What's your question, please?
Are they planning to do any documentaries in VR 180 and put them in places where people can access them? Because I am desperate for documentaries in VR 180.
Specifically to do with diversity and inclusion, is that what you mean?
Anything. We need it all.
Okay, documentaries. Are you anybody aware of any documentaries? Maybe Nina?
Well,
in the
all
film
of the film festivals have them. There's, for example, Targo, which is a French-based company. There's Arte, who also work on it. And then you've got New York Times, you've got The Guardian, you've got Al Jazeera. They've got
Al Jazeera, I was going to say.
Contrast VR. They all make Contrast VR actually has done a lot of good documentary pieces that are focused on underrepresented groups. So yeah, if you look at those, they all have mini documentaries which are made quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
BBC also has a few.
Stereo VR 180. Does the Stereo VR 180? Because whenever I get to mono, I'm not as interested in it.
Okay, so it's the quality of the film you're after. Okay. Brennan or Alan, any other ideas for... Veer TV, I'm getting a news. Thank you, Jeremy from Evolver here. He's saying Veer TV. Do you know Veer TV? They have 180 3D stereoscopic, some quite high quality films.
I don't know if they have it.
Okay. Thank you for that question. We also have Tyler, Collaborative Vexer. Tyler, are you here? You got a question? Tyler, are you with us? You might have to unmute yourself, please.
I'm here.
Oh, hi, Tyler.
Sorry.
Do you want to give us a wave or move so we can see where
Megaphone,
you are?
but unmuted. Yes, we go.
Okay, cool. Yes, what's your question?
Just specific question about women again. I'm a male here and talk about meetups in VR for women. I've had a number of people talking to me about whether it's harassment or some form of not feeling as safe. Is there, to go a little bit more deeper, is there benefits in VR as opposed to a women's group in real, like where you had the same people collaborating, participating? Do you see a benefit to there where you have an avatar as opposed to a real person? What's the biggest benefit to doing that as opposed to, yeah, like I said, like a small women's group where you get to be friends or something?
Okay. I'm going to look at Nina here because I think you have experience with this.
So I made a whole documentary about video games and women and female representation in video games, and how women have felt the need to group in order to feel safe. And I think the VR community has become a lot better, and there are a lot more women in VR, which is great. But I still think that because of VR and the way that it is immersive, women probably still feel there are certain rules and restrictions that are needed. I'm sure that Altspace has, you know, the little safety button on the side to make sure that there's a way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
I think online, that especially coming from gaming, a lot of harassment does come, and it is very childish and it is very immature. And I don't really have a solution for it, except that parents have to teach their children how to behave in the digital world the same way as they should in real world. So I think it all comes down to parenting, really.
Thank you. I have a couple of thoughts on that, Nina. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that answer. I couldn't agree more. First of all, I want to just say that I think 2 or 3 events back, we had a woman called Jessica Outlaw. Maybe, Nina, you know her. She came to speak to us about some research she had done on harassment in VR. She had interviewed 600 users about their experience, and the statistics she was telling us about I think it was 60%, Rel, if I'm not mistaken, 60% of people had felt harassed, mostly women. And I think the research had been done before Christmas, and I noticed a big change in Altspace in the user base before Christmas, after Christmas. A lot of young kids had been given an Oculus Go for Christmas, and Altspace seemed crowded out. Do you remember that? Anybody else remember that?
Yes, indeed. And we're about to have it again with a Quest in a month, so we're ready for it. We're ready, and Jessica helped.
I wonder if Jessica Outlaw's statistics would be even more dramatic now. Sorry. I have one more question here from, thank you, Tyler, for that question, from Rob Thiroux. Are you here, Rob? Can you let us know where you are?
Yes, I'm over here.
Okay.
Oh, hi. It's just a comment to Nina that I teach at a community college in Canada, and we're working with some other colleges and Corrections Canada to develop and or find some off-the-shelf VR applications to train prisoners in the trades. Things as simple as how to drive a forklift. So it's happening in other places, and we're very interested in that subject area as well.
Fantastic.
Please send me a DM. I'd love to chat to you and share research. I'm approaching a lot of companies working in mental health. I think the biggest concern is, will you get addicted to VR if we were to take VR away from you, if you're using it as a form of escapism? And so they are genuinely concerned.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for that question. Behind us here, I have put up the Twitter handles, and I think it's okay for everyone, if you're interested in the work that these people are doing, Alan and Nina and Brennan, please do get in touch. You can also find several of us on the Discord channel. I've got one more question, Maria. We're going to go quickly with Maria, and then we're going to move on to some news. Maria, where are you? Can you let us know where you are?
Yeah, Randy.
Hello.
I don't even know how to use. Hello, can
we were hearing you. Yeah.
you hear me?
Please turn on
megaphone. We can
megaphone,
hear you, yes.
Maria, please turn on megaphone.
Yeah,
your bottom right megaphone.
She says it's on. I'll repeat the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
So apologies, but I'm completely new to this.
Welcome. You're doing well. You're doing fine. Let's give her some love.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah. Hi there.
So question for you. Anyone here
So is anyone here teaching in VR in K through 12?
I'm not. No. Anyone else? K through 12? Oh, you got some over here? Yeah. Maria,
we have many people on our Discord channel. Yeah.
Yes. So I was going to say, Maria, if you're interested in that, yeah, please, Brennan, please.
We're having our application, particularly we're working with the Department of New York Department of Education, and we also have a school that's been using our subscription-based training. So where our training for diversity and inclusion has been used by schools, and for like primary schools and universities, high schools,
Fantastic.
Universities, not primary. Yeah.
So your experiences are suitable for K through 12 kids?
Most of the experiences have been designed for workplace training, but they can be navigated by kids. And
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maria, does that answer your question? I hope.
Unfortunately.
The sound issues. I'm getting sound issues. Maybe it's just me.
Sure.
Please join our Discord.
I'm not sure
you'll
I got
meet
the
a
whole
lot of
answer.
people. If you join our Discord server.
For you, Maria.
Okay. Yes. Rel.
I'll take care of it in here.
Okay.
In
lovely.
room 2.
Right. We do have some other questions. We're running out of time. I'm really sorry. I'm not going to take the last 2 questions, Sarah and Rich. Thank you for being willing. But we're going to move on because of time. Please, we mentioned the Discord a few times. Do join us there because there are conversations going on every night of the week. We cover a lot of almost every topic in education, K through 12, research, tech tips, all kinds of content creation. Find us on the Discord. There'll be a link later on. I want to move on now briefly, just for a moment, to right. Yes, some news and announcements for our community here. Let me work through these briefly. So, first of all, AltSpace now has a channel. So far we only had events, but we are now an officially recognized channel by AltSpace, which is very kind. And it means that we get featured regularly. So, yeah, thank you for everybody, especially Rel, for working on that with me. Excellent. We also thanks to Rel, who is a wizard with WordPress, we have a website now. I don't know if anybody's seen it. We haven't promoted it massively, but we're going to get on it definitely. It's a bit of a blog, also resources and links, so find us there and help us spread the word. We have Elise here, I think, filming, and we also have Valibrarian here. I think, hello, Valibrarian, is this you? Hi there, yes. Valibrarian and I were invited to give a Second Life speech for the VCARA on Island School a few weeks ago. We gave a keynote together, which went really well. I really enjoyed that. And the news is really that places like virtual worlds are looking towards virtual reality to see if they can add it to their toolbox. So when we get all of the experience from Second Life virtual worlds in virtual reality, I think also we stand to gain there. The next point is, yes, we had someone from AltSpace approach Laurel and me about an interview, which will be, I think, featured soon on their website. And then Rel and I think it was yesterday or the night before, we got interviewed for the Virtual Reality Podcast, which is going to air in about 2 weeks. So we're really excited about that. We have down there the AWE. Thank you. Yes, the Virtual Reality Podcast. Big shout out to Amanda Fox and their team. Thank you for that. End of May is the Augmented World Expo, AWE, in San Francisco. Can anybody give me any hearts if you're going? Anybody going to that? I am lucky enough to have some tickets. I'm going to be going. If you are going, please connect with me. We'll meet up and have a coffee and chat. That would be lovely. I'd love to make some friends out there. Are you going to that, Brennan?
I don't think I'm going to be going this year, no.
Okay, shame. All right, then let's move on. Featured Discord members. We are going to be doing some more work on our Discord where we will be featuring people who are doing unusual, remarkable, noticeable work. So that's a feature we're going to be bringing to Discord. The Discord group is Educators in VR. There'll be a link. Sorry, Valibrarian is asking me a question. The link is, I'll bring it up just after this slide for you, okay? Next up really is we're growing with what we're doing. The community is growing at a great rate. Thank you for joining. And we're really keen to kind of expand on what we're doing. We are considering bringing maybe a second monthly event, maybe in the form of a workshop or featuring other people. So give me some emojis if you would be up for that, if there's an appetite for that. And if so, lovely. If so, really it's us, the community, so you in this place here, if you have any skills, any time, any interest in getting involved with Educators in VR, we are actively looking for maybe new members of the team who are willing to take on something like that, or just get involved more with the day-to-day discussions on the Discord channel. And we have also just recently, this isn't even up on the board, we've just recently released a Facebook group, and I want to say a few words to that. I really like our Discord server, and I want to keep it as active and thriving as it is. But there are a lot of people in educational VR who don't do Discord or don't want to, and they are already discussing on Facebook. So we are going to promote this group for people who want to meet on Facebook. It doesn't replace the Discord channel, because the Discord is a great place for categorizing resources, but I feel the need for a Facebook group as well. So I'll be shouting about that soon. The next is Laurel and I. We're always ambitious. We've always got a project up our sleeves, and we're thinking either in the summer or maybe for our first year anniversary of doing something a little bit bigger, maybe in the style of a TEDx conference or something like that. We could discuss that going forward, maybe try and work with Altspace on featuring a bigger event. That might be nice. We're almost done with the community news, guys. We also have Jeremy over here in the corner in the blue with he's waving at you. This is Jeremy from Evolver. He does amazing meditation sessions weekly. He has a team of meditators, which I have just joined. I'm very pleased to say. Thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me to the team. Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. So Wednesdays, I have joined the team to give meditation in German, because I grew up in Germany. I speak fluent German, so they have enough English-speaking meditators, but I'm going to be joining German. And actually, Alan over here, our speaker, thank you, for the hearts, he's the guy who designed the spaces, so we're in good company here. And the very last point that I wanted to bring up is the next event, which is, I'll bring it up here, our next event is Thursday, June 6th. 9 p.m. VRTZ. Anybody ever seen VRTZ? It's virtual reality time zone. We had a discussion going on about this, that there's too many time zones. We should just have one time zone to rule them all. And we've decided that it's virtual reality time zone, which is United UTC, which is Universal Time Coordinated. So maybe you can spread that word as well. Join us on the Discord, Valibrarian. The Discord link is down here. We're going to go in just a moment on to meeting and greeting and networking, but I unfortunately have a bit of sad news today. Just before we came on to this event, I got news from a very good friend of mine that Chris Long, does anybody know Chris Long? Unfortunately, suddenly something's happened and he's passed away. He's left us. So I'm absolutely heartbroken about this. Don't quite know yet what happened. I was speaking to him last night. He was full of life. He just started a new venture. I think the whole community, we lost a really, really good guy today. So sorry about that. I felt the need to mention it. I didn't want to bring down, but we lost a good guy tonight. There we go. And with that, let's move on then. Thank you everybody for the event today. I'm sure you'll see some more news about Chris Long. But with that, feel free now, please, to switch your megaphones off, but to unmute yourself and go and strike up a conversation with somebody in the space, find out who they are, make a conversation, make a contact, add friends, and so on. That's what this is for, meeting and greeting and networking. I'm going to go my megaphone off. You
and just as a reminder,
yes, please,
you can head out.
Good job.
You can head outside to chat out in the beautiful gardens and by the trees and in behind. So if it gets noisy, just spread yourself out.
Great. Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Okay. Yay.
Okay.
Yay.
How's it going? Good to see you.
You too. Oh,
Hey, Rob.
Hey,
Yeah. Was VRDI